To people on the outside who were seeing us interact, it probably looked like a close bond. Oh, look at them. They get along so well. I wish I got along with the people in my life like these two. Like I was praised for having that close relationship. I feel like my abuser felt proud of it too. I remember they would call me their best friend. They would say things like, I've never had a relationship like this with anyone else. You are my best friend. I will always be your best friend. Just know that what we have, like, you'll never find this anywhere else. And nobody will ever love you the way that I love you. And what we have is special. Like, this person, I'm sure they thought that we were going to be attached to the hip until the day either of us died. Did you know that April is Sexual Abuse Awareness Month? Though April is coming to an end, awareness doesn't stop this month. It continues every day of the year because every day someone experiences sexual abuse. According to RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, and its analysis of the U.S. Department of Justice data, someone in the U.S. is sexually assaulted roughly every 74 seconds. And every 9 minutes, that someone is a child. I am a survivor of sexual abuse, and today I want to talk about it. The shame I have carried for many years, the painful reality of coming to terms that I am a survivor of sexual abuse. I also want to talk about emotional incest and how insidious it is, and leave you with resources, because if there is something we need, it's tools and help. I encourage you to grab a cozy blanket and have some extra self-care queued up as you take in this episode. Hello, trauma brains, and welcome. For those that are new, hi, I am Raisa, a trauma survivor who lives with complex PTSD, and I created this podcast because I know how confusing and isolating healing can feel. Welcome to Hello Trauma Brain. Here we talk about the ups and downs of healing complex trauma, boundaries, coming to terms with the fact that people I love were abusing me, and what it looks like to heal one slow and tiny step at a time. If you are living with CPTSD or supporting someone who is, this podcast is for you. Welcome, new and returning trauma brains. I am so glad you're here. New episodes are released every other Thursdays or as my trauma brain allows. Before we get into the episode, a quick reminder, I am not a therapist or mental health professional. Everything shared here is based on my personal experience, and this podcast is not meant to replace therapy or medical support. If you think you may be living with CPTSD or any other mental health condition mentioned here, please reach out to a licensed professional who can support you. Any people, services, or resources mentioned in this episode are not sponsors of Hello Trauma Brain. Today, we are talking about sexual abuse, sexual assault, and a form of abuse called emotional incest. I will be sharing some of my own story. If any of these topics feel activating for you right now, please take care of yourself first. It is okay to pause, come back later, listen with extra support nearby, or skip the episode completely. Your safety always comes first. All right, let's get into the show. Like I said in the intro, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And this year it is hitting harder for me with everything going on with the Epstein survivors, the Rape Academy, and I am reaching a point in my healing where I have addressed enough of my childhood abuse that the sexual abuse is coming into focus. For me, April is also personal in terms of being a trauma anniversary month because one of the times I was sexually assaulted happened in April. And for a long time, I thought of it as the first time, the one that I could point to, the one that I had language for it. But as I have kept healing, I have been able to look back and recognize that it wasn't the first time. There were other times before it that I did not understand as assault when they happened. I didn't have the words, I didn't have the framework. I just had the confusion and the body memory and the feeling that something was wrong. I don't want to let another year pass by in silence. Not anymore. Not on the show. Not when so many of us carry stories like mine. My check-in for this episode is that I made it through that trauma anniversary this year, and I want to briefly share with you how I navigated it. So that trauma anniversary is one of those where I sleep through it every year because it happened at like 2, 3 a.m. So like the days surrounding that time tend to feel very heavy for me. And pretty much every year, the way it feels like is I feel like my life freezes and like just stops during those 2 days, and it becomes really hard to navigate things. And I try to avoid doing anything significant because I get concerned with like getting conditioned with the trauma anniversary. And so this year I did not start binging beef the day it came out, and I actually haven't started it yet. I want to say at least last year I did the dialoguing for that day, and this year what I did was I dialogued both days. Then the goal became self-care. I had scheduled things without realizing it was on those days, and I started taking things off the list, tried to leave as much space open, and made sure that I dialogue with my inner kiddo on both days to check in to see what was coming up. And I found that helpful. I think dialoguing definitely helped bring things down and help me come back to the present and also feel like I acknowledged it, not just tried to forget about it and moved on like nothing happened, because let's face it, something did happen to us. Interestingly, so on the second day, towards the end now, I took a walk and decided to start listening to Ray's album, which, by the way, fantastic. Oh my gosh, that woman. She's gonna get awards for this thing. It's excellent. Ray's album is called This Music May Contain Some Hope, all caps, and period at the end. My favorite track is Lifeboat. Just Chef's Kiss. I feel like I kind of started listening to the album and then realized, oh wait, it's still today, the day that it was. And I still listen to it. And I have to say, talk about a good soundtrack for empowerment. I feel like that was a good choice for me. And I'm glad I listened to it that day. Then for the weekend, right after, I did a lot of things actually. I definitely overbooked myself then. All the stuff that I took off the list those 2 other days, I kind of made up for the weekend right after. And one of the things that I did was I went to an African dancing event that my local YMCA was having for Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. And I have to say, I had not done African dancing before ever. And I guess what I was picturing was maybe some chanting involved and screaming and moving around my body. And I don't know, definitely not expecting what I actually got, which was great. But I will say, for anyone who has not done this before, make sure you stretch, make sure you bring a lot of water. In the future, next time I do this, if I ever do it again, I'll have a hydration packet on my water because I didn't do that this time. And let me tell you, I felt it. It's a workout. My legs, my thighs, my calves were hurting for days. It was a great workout. I was just like, I did not expect to get the work out of my life in less than an hour. And I'm glad I did it though. I was really glad I went to that event. Then I went to a concert. I saw Red and the Paper Flowers. Talk about excellent. I usually don't go to impromptu concerts like this. Like I know who I'm seeing. I saw like a clip of these people playing on Instagram and they were playing like 12 minutes away, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go. And usually I listen to the whole album ahead of time and I didn't have time. I just showed up. And by the way, extremely talented people. They're incredible. I was able to get their vinyl Appalachian Bell Jar, and they have 2 more albums coming up. And really down to earth people. They were like doing their own merch selling. Red gave me a hug when I got there. It's just like it. I will say it felt really nice to be a part of the community and have this shared experience. Then the next day, I went to do an Earth Day yoga, which was in this basically in this venue that sells plants. So there were plants everywhere, and it was wonderful. Very gentle. I'm so glad it was gentle because my legs were really hurting from the day before. And yeah, both days I got myself brunch. And then I capped the weekend by going to my first live support group. I've done many support groups online, but this is the first time I went in person. And it was for a group to support LGBTQIA plus people like me, and also met lovely people. I feel like it was just a really good weekend for me to feel connected, because I usually isolate and stay on my own and don't go out. And yeah, I'm trying to work on taking some risk and actually getting out there. So that's the check in. So, with that being said, let's transition into this episode. Today, I'm going to do something I haven't done in this podcast before. I am going to talk about my own experiences that I have done before. I will talk about being a survivor of sexual assault. I have briefly talked about that before, but here's the new thing I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about my experience being someone who grew up in a dynamic called emotional incest. I'll explain what it is because I know for some of you that term might be new. I'm also going to talk about abusers, not in a way that sensationalizes them or brings the focus on them, but in a way that helps us understand how abuse works and why it is hard to see it when you're in it and why it is never, ever the survivor's fault. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with resources because awareness without action is just words. I am still getting the hang of this whole podcasting thing, especially this new video format. I am still experimenting not only with what is the best format for me, but also for you. And I am learning to be a better advocate and how to create better awareness. So, let's talk about emotional incest first. I want to start off with this because I feel like this might be one of the most misunderstood forms of abuse. And part of it is that it doesn't carry the same weight as the words sexual assault. And yet, damage it does is profound and lasting, and to me, just as bad. Emotional incest is also called covert incest. I grew up experiencing this for most of my life, and I didn't have a name for it. I just knew that something felt off. I did feel that some relationships in my life felt suffocating and confusing. Like there were invisible threads pulling at me, asking me to be something that I wasn't equipped to be. Here's what emotional incest is. It is when an adult caregiver, and that could be a parent, grandparent, or another person that is playing that role, treats a child as an emotional partner, not a sexual partner, but an emotional one. They lean on the child for comfort, validation, companionship in ways that are inappropriate for the child's age and role. The child becomes the caretaker of the adult's emotional world. In my experience, there was one abuser in particular who made me feel responsible for their feelings. I was their confidant, the person they dumped all of their problems, thoughts, and feelings on. I was the one responsible for managing their moods, their loneliness, and their pain. And I loved them. So I did. I didn't know I had a choice. I didn't know that wasn't my job. I just knew that I felt bad for them and I wanted them to feel better. So I was trying to help. At least I thought I was. This particular person shared some explicit details that I should have never been hearing, not at the age that I was back then. And honestly, not ever. I don't think that what they were sharing with me was appropriate at all. What makes emotional incest so insidious is that from the outside, it can look like closeness and love. To people on the outside who were seeing us interact, it probably looked like a close bond. Look at them. They get along so well. I wish I got along with the people in my life like these two. Like I was praised for having that close relationship. I feel like my abuser felt proud of it too. I remember they would call me their best friend. They would say things like, I've never had a relationship like this with anyone else. You are my best friend. I will always be your best friend. Just know that what we have, like you'll never find this anywhere else. And nobody will ever love you the way that I love you. And what we have is special. Like this person, I'm sure they thought that we were going to be attached to the hip until the day either of us died. But we were too close. The lines were blurring. They felt entitled to everything about me. It is like they couldn't keep themselves from being around me and touching me constantly. It felt icky and obsessive. And sometimes I would protest and they would get really angry when I did. It wasn't until I learned about emotional incest that I finally understood why it felt off. In my case, sadly, the abuse didn't just stay covert. The boundary violations also included physical intrusion. This particular abuser would walk in while I was getting showered or getting dressed, and they control the way that I dressed. And they would be very intrusive in touching my body under this pretense that they were just helping me get dressed or helping me look better. And I just didn't know how to do things on my own. And a lot of infantilization in a weird way while I was getting parentified and becoming their caretaker. It was just, if it sounds confusing, it's because it fucking is. I'm still confused about it, to be honest. And this continued years into adulthood. Being walked in on like that, having no privacy, having my body touched without my consent, having my clothing and appearance controlled, crossed the line. So when I say emotional incest, I want to be clear. It was covert sexual abuse. And for me, at times it crossed into that over sexual abuse realm as well. Let's slow down and really unpack emotional incest because I think this is one of the most under discussed forms of childhood trauma out there. Also, one of the most misunderstood. You ready? Let's go. Emotional incest, also called covert incest, is a form of covert sexual abuse. It happens when a caregiver, which can be a parent or any other person that's very close to the child, is treating the child as a surrogate partner, crossing emotional and often sexualized boundaries that should have never been crossed between an adult and a child. The term covert incest was popularized by therapist Kenneth Adams in his 1991 book called Silently Seduced, and the related term emotional incest is often associated with Dr. Patricia Love's book, The Emotional Incest Syndrome. The first time I heard emotional incest was in therapy many years ago before I even knew about narcissistic abuse. A therapist had actually recommended Patricia Love's book, and here's how it was introduced to me. This therapist at the time said, "Okay, I'm going to recommend a book, but before I say the name of the book, I want you to know something. The title sounds worse than what it actually is. I don't know that it should be called that, but I think it will be helpful." And they added, also order it online. I wouldn't go to an actual bookstore because it's going to be pretty weird for you to be getting this in person. And the cashier might give you a weird look. Yep. If you're thinking, what the fuck? Yeah. That was the reaction another therapist of mine had years later. And I remember he added, and I'm very grateful he added this. He said, "It's not better than what it sounds. Like, if anything, is worse. It's fucking bad." And it is, by the way. Honestly, that intro scared the fuck out of me. It said, read it, it might be helpful, but it's actually not that bad. And then, of course, I didn't pick up on it and how bad it was for many years after that. I actually got the book. I did get it on Amazon, and I actually haven't read it yet. I kind of forgot that I had it, and I still have it. It's like right here. I'll show you in a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to probably try to prioritize that read this year as I feel like it's overdue. I did read Silently Seduced a while back. I forget when I read it. And mm, mm. Anyway, I personally think it's way worse than what it sounds. I feel like people try to say it's not really incest, or it's not really this, or it's not really that. It's sexual abuse. It has the word incest for a reason. And if anything, to be honest, the covert sexual abuse to me has been the most confusing one to heal because it's so hard to recognize. And if you're not clocking in, it's bad. How do you treat it? How do you heal from it? And how do you put the pieces together? Spoiler alert, you're going to have a hard time. I have. And quite frankly, feeling the confusion of it and seeing people minimize it causes more shame. And shame is pretty much the overlining blanket that's going to keep you stuck without healing. And if anything, it's going to make it worse. I have survived a lot of abuse: physical, emotional, sexual, religious abuse, financial abuse, probably a bunch that I'm forgetting right now, and some that I don't even know are abuse, and I'm going to find out in like 3 years from now. Emotional incest, I have to say, is one of the worst types of abuse I have endured, and one of the most painful and harder to heal. It's had such a chronic, long, and painful impact in my life. I feel like it's the one that causes the most shame, and also the one that feels the hardest to share. Here's some examples that emotional incest can look like. It can look like a parent oversharing details about their sex life or romantic relationships, sexualized commenting on the child's body or development, lack of physical privacy, intrusive touching disguised as care of affection, and treating the child as a confidant or best friend, in air quotes, in ways that are inappropriate for a child's age and role. It is robbing the child of simply being a child. There may not be overt sexual contact, and even when there isn't, the dynamic itself is sexualized and the harm is real. It is not just enmeshment, it's abuse. The message the child is internalizing is, your job is to take care of me. And children are wired to love their parents or their caregivers, to attach to them, to do whatever it takes to keep that attachment safe. So they comply. They take on the role and they lose themselves in it. As adults, survivors of emotional incest often struggle with things like difficulty saying no. Check. Feeling responsible for other people's emotions. Check. Choosing relationships where they overgive. Anybody else out there? Check. Difficulty identifying their own needs. Guessed it. Anxiety, people pleasing, and confusion about what healthy love looks like. Check, check, check. If any of these are resonating with you, throw a check on the comment section or share anything that resonated with you so other people don't feel alone. Because trust me, you are not. If any of this sounds familiar, you are not broken. You were shaped by something that wasn't fair. It was done to you. And you can reshape to heal. I know some of you listening right now are recognizing something. I want you to know that recognition is valid. You might be feeling a lot of confusion and you are not alone. All right, the second thing I want to talk about today is that I am also a survivor of sexual assault. I'm also going to keep this part in broad strokes. I want to be mindful of not triggering you with anything too graphic. My goal is definitely not to traumatize you with my story. And I'm also still learning that my healing doesn't require me to prove anything to anyone. So it is still hard to say it, but it did happen. It was real. I did say no multiple times. I said no with my body language. I said no with my words. The way I was holding onto my clothes also said no. And he didn't stop. This person kept going. And eventually I gave up and it happened. For a long time, I questioned whether what happened to me counted. And I am doing air quotation marks for those that are listening to this episode, whether it was bad enough, whether I had done something to cause it. Here's the thing, I didn't. I blamed it on what I was wearing. I blamed it on the fact that I had also been drinking. I blamed it on the fact that I did choose to talk to this person in private because they wanted to talk to me. And I didn't think they would ever do that to me, but they did. I doubted whether it was bad enough. And these are all the things that survivors wrestle with after sexual abuse. I did not think that I belonged in the space. I remember people would tell me that it wouldn't feel like that forever. And eventually I would find it empowering to help others. But I didn't feel empowered at the time, let alone empowering. It still doesn't. I will say this, if younger Raisa could see me talking about this today in a podcast, she would probably be very amazed and she wouldn't believe it unless she saw it. It's been many years and it feels like a big deal for me to be able to come on this public forum and not only talk about it, but see it more clearly and stand in the truth of like, that is what happened to me and it was fucked up. And I feel more angry now at this person that I did back then. Back then, I was angry at myself and all the ways that I thought I had caused it. And I was just concerned about not hurting them. And in a way, I might still have some of that running me, but I definitely feel more anger towards this person. And I'll put it this way, if they ever dare come anywhere near me, I'm calling the fucking police and I will not go anywhere near them. I don't ever want to talk to them again, hear from them again, nothing. I want them gone. I got some fucked up unsolicited advice from people. I had someone tell me that that had happened to them, but they had to keep running into this person all the time. And I just had to get used to doing stuff like that. And I was not fucking having it. I didn't want to be anywhere near this person. And I fucking put my foot down and I made a ruckus about that because some people were actually trying to invite us to the same events and they were expecting me to just go along and just be there. And I was like, if I'm going, they're not going. And if they're going, I'm not fucking showing up. And it was painful. We had mutual friends and some of them believed him and they didn't believe me. And it fucking hurt. I was encouraged to keep the clothes as a way of empowering and taking back what happened to me. And I will say, I love that fucking dress. Ah. I tried. I kept the clothes and I remember seeing them laid out on my bed and I was just like, I couldn't get myself to fucking do it. I can't remember if I like actually tried to put the clothes back on. Here's what I will say. I eventually ended up throwing the stuff away because even the thought of donating it, knowing the history it carried, just didn't feel right to me. I was like, nobody should be wearing this fucking thing after what happened to me and what happened to that fucking dress and everything else. And yeah, it's gone. It's gone. Another thing to grieve. And it took a while to get there too. Here's the thing that bothers me a lot. And it is that we did not really learn proper consent. I feel like the version that I learned about consent growing up was very black and white, very extreme, and it failed to capture a lot of nuances that happen in relationships and interactions with other human beings. So poppers did not do me any favors either. They normalized a lot of sexual abuse, spiking drinks. There were people assaulting from any gender. Like you would see a man doing it, you would see a woman doing it. And it was portrayed as this like plot to get someone to be with them. It was just fucking nasty. And again, it wouldn't be shown as a way of showing, oh, this is, you know, wrong. And I feel like it missed the mark in terms of showing proper consent. And it normalized a lot of really inappropriate and abusive behavior. In my case, being a survivor with the history that I have, I feel like it, on top of everything else that I was consuming that was not helping, it really cemented not being able to pick up on when someone was hurting me and setting boundaries like that. What boundaries? I wasn't allowed to have any fucking boundaries. Anybody could just come in and take whatever they wanted from me. And I had to smile while letting them. As I have become more educated on consent, as I have been learning more about sexual assault, what it is, all the ways that it can happen, and really understanding like consent fully, how it's not just saying yes, there's a lot more to it. That's around the time when I started to realize that, oh, at one time, that wasn't the first time. I have been sexually assaulted a bunch of times before that, but I didn't know. I didn't see it. Nobody called it like that. A huge misconception I had was that if I knew the person and we were involved in any way, then especially if I trusted the person, is it? It's not it. And especially if the person was trying to frame it like, oh, I'm just, I just want to really go there because I love you and things like that. Like when you portrayed it as that's an act of love, I would just lose my ability to fight it. It would be so hard for me to say no. And I remember I would say no sometimes and like physically have to like push this person away from me. And then I would feel terrible. I would feel guilty for rejecting this person who was trying to love me, not even fucking clocking in that they were trying to assault me. They were trying to rape me. They were forcing themselves. Even saying the word rape, I just said it just now. Like for many years, I've called it sexual assault because I feel like in my mind, rape is too strong of a word to capture what happened to me, and I need to work on that because it was rape. It was definitely rape. This whole calling it rape, which it is, has been hitting me a little bit hard for the past few months because earlier this year, I was listening to Fawning, which is the newest book by Dr. Ingrid Clayton, who was a guest on the podcast last season. And I will link our episode if you want to check it out. But in Fawning, Ingrid is sharing the story of one of her clients who had been raped and didn't realize it. This client was telling Ingrid what happened to her, and Ingrid was like, this is rape. The way this person was telling the story was blaming themselves, taking responsibility for what happened, and they did not clock in that they had been raped. And I remember when I heard that part and I was in my kitchen over there, it hit me hard because that's what happened to me. Like if you sat me down in therapy and tell me to tell the thing, especially a few years ago, I would have told the story in terms of how it was my fault for X, Y, and Z. And it wasn't really the R word. So I'm going to call it sexual assault because it was more of a gray area consent thing. Even though in this case, I don't think it was gray area at all. I'm starting to realize that now. It's hard to say it. And though I can still feel the doubt, and are you sure that that's what it is, Raisa? You're saying this publicly. Watch out. I'm going to still practice saying it here because we got to call it what it is. It was rape. I was raped. I got a song idea a few months ago, and basically the idea of the song is emphasizing what's really consent and what's not consent. And I'll share the line that came to me. Yes once doesn't mean yes every time. I didn't understand that. I thought if we had made out, if we had already done anything, if we were close, if I had agreed and then changed my mind, like that's hypocritical. I can't change my mind. I already said yes. I can't take it back. I thought you couldn't take it back, but yes, you can. You can change your mind in the middle of it. Just because it happened once, it doesn't mean that now this person has unlimited access to doing whatever they want with you ever again. You can say no at any time. Let that sink in anytime. You can literally go, oh, yeah, I'm okay with this. And literally go 2 seconds later, wait, I changed my mind. I don't want to go through with this. And that is consent taken away. And if the other person continues and forces you, that's rape. Sometimes the other person would get angry that I would not want to do some things. Sometimes it was easier for me to just go along. That's what I was taught, after all. It felt safer at the time, but it was wrong. It wasn't safe. I had a right to say no at the time, at any time. I should have never been forced to do something I didn't want to do. I think the sad part about this is that sex is seen as this very performative thing. I feel like that's still a thing. It's getting untangled. People are getting better at it. But if I could take things back, I would have had boundaries. I would have been stronger with my nose. And I would have liked to have a more engaging checking system with each other, like going both ways. If you are sitting with a story like mine, whether it was one incident or many, whether it was a stranger or someone you trusted, whether it happened recently or decades ago, I want to say this to you directly. What happened to you was not your fault. It counted. You are not making it up. You deserve support. And I believe you. I believe you. I want to add something that came up for me as I was writing this episode. I dialogued with my inner kiddo last night, and we were sitting with some of the feelings that came up as I was scripting this episode. And here's the truth. She is still really, really scared that if we say something, if we say what happened, something bad is going to happen to our abusers, that they'll end up getting hurt. My inner kiddo cares about these people so much. And honestly, so do I. And her default, even now, is to prioritize their well being, their reputation, their safety over ours. If you relate to that, I want you to know that doesn't mean you're making it up or that it wasn't abuse. It can be a trauma response. It can be fawning. It can be survival. It can be a part of you that learned staying safe meant staying loyal, and staying loyal is staying silent. I spent years minimizing what happened to me. Part of the minimization was about the people who harmed me, because I knew I felt bad for them. I was scared of hurting them. I prioritized their well-being over mine, because when the person who hurts you is someone you know, someone you love, someone who is woven into the fabric of your life, it complicates everything. It makes it harder to name, it makes it harder to leave, and it makes it harder to heal. We're going to talk about that dynamic too. Let's talk about the spectrum of sexual abuse. Sexual abuse exists on a spectrum. And one of the most harmful myths we carry is the idea that abuse has to look a certain way to count. Abuse can be unwanted touching or kissing. It can be coercion, being pressured or manipulated into sexual activity. It can be exposure to sexual content or behavior without consent. It can be assault by a stranger or a partner. It can happen once or over years. It can happen to people of any age, gender, or background. And sexual abuse often happens within relationships, family, romantic relationships, friendships, workplaces. In fact, the majority of sexual assaults are committed by someone the survivor knows. This is important to understand because it's part of why reporting is so hard, why leaving is so hard, why even naming it is so hard. I want to talk about how abuse happens, not to center the abuser, but to help us understand why survivors so often feel confused, stuck, or complicit in something that was done to them. Grooming is the process by which an abuser builds trust and access. It can look like being unusually attentive or generous, creating a special relationship with the victim, slowly introducing boundary violations to normalize them, and isolating the victim from other support systems. Grooming can happen quickly or over years. And because it often feels like love or closeness in the beginning, survivors often don't recognize it as grooming until they're already deep in it or until they're safely on the other side. Manipulation, on the other hand, keeps abuse in place. Abusers often use guilt. Some examples are saying things like, "Look at everything I've done for you." Denial, saying things like, "That didn't happen. You're imagining it." Minimization, "It wasn't a big deal." Fear, "No one will ever believe you." And love, which is the one that tends to be pretty sticky for me. It can sound like this: "I do this because I love you." These tactics are designed to keep survivors silent, doubting themselves, and dependent. Secrecy is the mechanism that protects abusers. They create an environment, sometimes explicitly, sometimes through shame and pressure, where the survivor feels they cannot tell anyone. That secrecy is isolating, and it's one of the heaviest things survivors carry. Understanding these dynamics doesn't excuse the abuser. It helps us extend compassion to ourselves for how and why we stayed, why we didn't tell, and why we sometimes still protect the people who hurt us. This is the question that people love to ask. It might be coming from a well intentioned place, sometimes straight out of judgment. Why didn't you say something sooner? For starters, don't ever ask that. And for those of you still asking, let me count the reasons for you. Because we didn't know it had a name? Because we loved the person who hurt us? Because we were children who depended on them? Because we've been told no one would believe us? Because we didn't believe ourselves? Because we were ashamed of something that was not our shame to carry? Because leaving felt more dangerous than staying? Because we were protecting other people? Because speaking up had consequences we were not ready for? Because we were still figuring out what was real? And there's more reasons, infinite reasons. Every single one of those reasons is valid. None of them make us weak. All of them make us human. And the fact that you are here, listening or watching this, maybe for the first time naming something in your own life, that is an act of extraordinary courage. I want to talk to you, the survivor, who's still doing this work, who has survived all these things like me. I ask you to please hear this. Dear Trauma Brain, not the general listener, not the person who's never been through this. To you, the one who recognized something in what I said today. The one whose heart rate changed a little, who felt that pit drop in their stomach when I started naming things. The one who has been carrying this quietly for longer than you should have had to. I see you. I believe you. What happened to you was not normal, even if it was normalized. It was not okay, even if people around you acted like it was. It was not your fault, even if you spent years convinced otherwise. Abusers thrive in silence. And part of what abusers do, intentionally or not, is make us feel like we are the problem, like we are too sensitive, too dramatic, like we misremembered, misunderstood, or provoked what happened. You didn't. I spent so much of my life shrinking the experiences I had with my abusers, telling myself that it wasn't that bad, protecting their image even in my own mind. I actually believed that they were loving and caring and wonderful. I did. And I want to tell you that shrinking is exhausting. It will also make you sick. You are allowed to take space with your truth. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to love someone and also acknowledge that they hurt you. Those two things can live in the same heart and the same brain. And neither one cancels the other out. You are not alone in this. According to RAIN, 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men in the United States alone have experienced an attempt or completed rape. And when you widen the lens to all forms of sexual violence, unwanted touching, coercion, harassment, the things that don't always get counted, the CDC reports nearly half of women and more than 1 in 6 men. those are just the reported numbers. The actual numbers are much higher. You are not the only one. This is not rare, and healing is possible. I am not fully healed. I'm going to be honest with you about that. I am very much a work in progress. I am still scared of releasing this episode. I am nervous about the details that I've shared so far, but I am more free now than I was. And that freedom started when I stepped away from the people that were abusing me and when I stopped protecting them with my silence and started telling my truth to myself first and then slowly to others. And still working on it, still learning, still owning parts of my story that are not reclaimed yet. And that is what this episode is part of for me. And maybe for some of you, this episode is part of that for you too. Before I close this episode, I want to leave you with a few resources because I feel like having tools is extremely important, especially when you are trying to heal from sexual abuse. I will be putting all this information in the show notes. No need to write it down. You get it from there. I want to first offer RAIN. RAIN has a national sexual assault hotline. You can call or text 1-800-656-HOPE, and HOPE is 4673. And there's an online chat on rain.org. That is RAIN, RAINN. It's available 24/7. It's confidential and it's free. There's a crisis text line. You can text HOME to 741741. Also available 24/7 for any kind of crisis, including assault and abuse. There's SNAP, which stands for Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. snapnetwork.org for survivors of religious institutional abuse. Psychology Today does have a therapist finder. You can go to their website, psychologytoday.com/US/therapists, and search by specialty, including trauma, PTSD, sexual abuse, and family of origin issues. I have a few recommended readings for you, and I have the physical copy of two of them. One of them is Silently Seduced, which I read. And this is a short read. This is by Kenneth Adams. What I will say is it's short, but it packs a punch. So definitely have some bookends when reading this book. This one is focused on covert incest, and it is triggering. Then there's The Emotional Incest Syndrome by Dr. Patricia Love. This is the one that I bought that I haven't read yet, so I'll let you know how it goes when I do. I imagine it's going to be triggering as fuck, which is why I've been putting it off. And the subtitle is What to Do When a Parent's Love Rules Your Life. All right. The third one I did listen to the audiobook is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson. As a great read. It helped me put language for a lot of things that I did not have language for years. And also with any of these books, again, I would have bookends, something to do for yourself before you start and have something to help you regulate after you are done reading whatever portion you're working on for the day. I want to leave you with some other social media or online content you can also check out. The first resource in terms of online content that I'll recommend is the Incest Alliance. They have an Instagram group. This is a group that I started following recently. I feel like they're fairly new. And recently, they just hosted their first ever Incest Awareness Day on April 21st. And they collaborated with the Healing and CPTSD Foundation to make that Awareness Day happen. And the Healing and CPTSD Foundation is the same one that hosts the Chronicles where I published my first article last year. I have seen the Incest Alliance post things about emotional incest specifically, which I feel like I want to see more of that because we need to create more awareness about that. And again, I'll link their Instagram account to the show notes. Next, I want to mention Brad Shore's YouTube channel. Brad is a licensed therapist, and a lot of his content is centered towards healing from childhood abuse, narcissistic parents, and things of that sort. Now, Brad also puts a lot of content out on emotional incest specifically. And that was one of the first places where I started really learning about it. And I remember I was actually sitting right here on this couch you see behind me. And I remember the first time I ever heard emotional incest being called covert sexual abuse was in one of his videos. And I swear I bawled and cried and lost my shit. This was like back in, oh my gosh, maybe like 2022. It was like before I went no contact, I want to say, or maybe like, it might have been before, but really good content. He has a lot of videos explaining what it is. And something he does really well is point out how it looks like in real life. So he'll pull examples from other books he's read or things like that, which is very helpful. Last resource I'll mention, there is someone I've been following on Instagram. His name is Perry Power. Perry has a memoir called Breaking the Silence. I haven't had an opportunity to read it yet, but what I do know about his story is that he was sexually abused by his grandfather. And after he broke the silence, he ended up learning that his father had also been abused by the same person. Now, Perry's an advocate, he's also a film producer. I think he scripted the film that he's working on, and he's also an actor. The film is called It Ends With Me, and I've been keeping a close eye on this film. Now, I haven't read the script, but from what I have seen Perry share about the movie, it sounds like it's going to be incredibly important in bringing awareness about childhood sexual abuse, incest, and de-shamifying something that has been so misunderstood and that has wrecked so many lives. And I will link Perry's Instagram, and there he has links for the GoFundMe for the movie and other information. I also know he's been helping other survivors publish memoirs of their stories. So he's just someone that I've been keeping an eye on because he's been extremely active and empowering not only himself, but other people. And I find that very inspiring. So that will wrap up this discussion and also the resources that I have for you today. How are you doing? I know it's a lot, it's heavy. Thank you for sticking with me through it. In this episode's healing invitation, I want to offer you a few things to reflect about. If something I shared resonated with you, did you struggle believing yourself? Sometimes we do not have a name for it, but our body knows. Did you notice anything going on? If anything came up as you listened to this episode, I invite you not only to sit with it, but also get support. I will be linking all the resources mentioned so you can reach out to someone. Perhaps you have a loved one who has been through this. I invite you to be there for them. You do not have to have all the answers. Do not have to say the perfect thing either. Showing up, holding their hand, and letting them know that you are there can be a huge game changer for a survivor who is suffering in silence. You deserve support and help. Your loved ones do too. Sometimes we need more support than one person can give. It is okay to ask for help from multiple people. It is okay to know where our limits are when we're supporting someone. And it is okay for us to take our time. You heal on your own timeline. Please let me know how this episode's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. And before we wrap up this episode, all music and production are courtesy of yours truly. And I love to share a few ways you can help support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you're listening. Share this episode with anyone you think might find it helpful. Follow the podcast on social media at hellotraumabrain. Subscribe to the hellotraumabrain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when new episodes go live. And if you like, you can also make a donation via PayPal. Thank you in advance for your support. Even a little goes a long way in helping this podcast reach more survivors who could benefit from this content. No worries, links to everything will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today and for trusting me with your time and attention. There is a lot of content out there, and you choosing this podcast means the world to me. Thank you for being willing to sit with the hard things. Thank you for showing up for yourself by listening to this. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you are someone who has never experienced abuse, but you listened anyway, thank you too. Because awareness is not just for survivors, it's for all of us. It's how we build a world where these things are named, believed, and stopped sooner. I don't know exactly who needed this episode today, but I believe you found it for a reason. Whether you're in the thick of it, years into your healing, or just beginning to wonder if what you experienced had a name, you're in the right place and you are not alone. Take care of yourself this week, drink some water, tell someone you trust one true thing. If you are watching on YouTube, there will be links on the screen shortly that you can click to subscribe and check out more episodes. I wish you a gentle rest of your day. Thank you for your presence, and I will see you next time.